March is a big month for Verity Media and social media magic. We have all kinds of awesome events going on to help you up your social media marketing game. And now more than ever, with the acquisition of TPT by IXL, all of the algorithm issues, and just the host of problems and changes that are coming with running an online business, it is more important than ever to have ways to build funnels and drive traffic to your offers that are either hosted on your website or at least hosted on a platform you can control. And that is a big focus. We're going to show you how to do that with Instagram throughout the month of March. You can come join one of our 30-minute workshops. They're only $7, they're pitch free, and you'll come away with tangible, practical tips. And if you're in the Content Club, you get an even better deal because you get access to all of these recordings from the workshops in the Value Vault. If you're not already in the Content Club, just DM me content on Instagram and I'll show you where to go and how to join. We'd love to see you in there. We also have a 3-day challenge happening March 28th through 30th, 2023. So if you're not sure what you need to focus on yet when it comes to your Instagram marketing, the challenge will be great because we're going to go over the foundations of setting up and optimizing your profile and helping you figure out exactly what to post and when to start driving traffic to your resources with Instagram. Are you ready? You can find all of the information in the show notes of this episode, or you can DM me on Instagram over at Brittany Verlenich. Now let's get on with the show. Hello and welcome to the Social Media Magic Podcast, the perfect podcast for TPT sellers, teacherpreneurs, and teacher business owners who consider themselves to be introverts. Each episode shares all kinds of ideas, tips, tactics, and strategies to help you make more sales and grow your community on social media. Without further ado, let's get on to today's episode. Welcome back to the Social Media Magic Podcast. I'm your host, Brittany Verlenich. I'm a content strategist, social media manager, and an overall marketing nerd, and I am so glad you're here because today we are continuing in our series about marketing with Instagram in an introvert-friendly way, and also just kind of talking strategy and tactics of like what's working right now for small business owners, specifically those selling digital products in 2023. So let's get into it. Carousel posts are working like a dream right now. For almost 3 years, Instagram was really pushing Reels, and they still are. But even the CEO of Instagram himself is saying they're not just pushing out Reels anymore. They are equally prioritizing photos, in which we call often feed posts, and carousel posts. And I've been seeing it with clients. We've been having some pretty amazing reach. Just to define that, remember that reach means someone who is not already following you seeing your post. So when you think about going to the Explore page, maybe having your post end up there, carousel posts are great for that, by the way, especially if you have a catchy hook on the first slide. They're just great for being shareable, and you'll learn why in this episode. So in this episode, I'm going to share some ways to make your carousel posts better, and I'm also going to share some tactical things that you can do after you make the post or while you're making the post so you can make sure it gets seen and pushed out to more people. So let's talk about why carousel posts are so effective. When we talk about repurposing, they're a really great way to repurpose any long-form content you have. If you have a podcast, a YouTube channel, a blog, or maybe more than one of those things, carousel posts are really nice because you can take those main bits of information and break them up over a slide. If you're new to Instagram, a carousel post is when you see kind of like a slideshow of images where you flick with your finger and you're able to advance the slides, and you can have up to 10 slides on one carousel post. When I'm talking about a photo or a feed post on Instagram, I'm talking about a single image that someone might have on their grid. So with carousel posts, the one really nice thing is that when you are scrolling through your feed, you actually have more than one chance to see a carousel post. So what'll happen is the first time someone comes across your carousel post on Instagram, they're going to see the cover image or whatever the first image is in your carousel post. And if that engages them, then that's awesome. It'll stop the scroll and then maybe have them flick through it and maybe even have them go to the caption and decide to like or engage or follow you from there. But the cool thing is, even if that person doesn't opt in to learn more the first time, Instagram is likely to push it out to them again, except for this next time, they're going to see the next slide. So you want to be thinking about that when you're actually planning the order of the slides in the carousel post. Think about what is a mini funnel or journey that you can take them on throughout that post. You could think of whatever your hook is going to be as the first slide, but what can you do on the second slide that will kind of act as a continued hook while also adding value? Don't put things on the slides just to have more slides because that doesn't really matter. In fact, if you can get somebody a quick win in a shorter amount of time with less text, with fewer graphics, that's even better. But if you are going to have more content, we want to make sure that whatever content is there is so valuable that they don't have to leave the platform, that they don't have to go to your email list, that they don't have to go to your blog post or click on a link sticker to get the value. We shouldn't be keeping it from them. And a few reasons for that. One, Instagram is really about connection, right? They're going there to learn more from you, to connect with you, to see what you have for them. And when we're telling them to go off the app, we're kind of telling them in a roundabout way that we don't have anything for them there. And if you think about it, if they don't have anything on the platform, why should they follow you? Why should they go and see what you're posting now? So we want to make sure that all the content we have on every social media platform we're using is equally as valuable, but especially with carousel posts, and especially that second slide, because if the hook itself doesn't capture them, or maybe we just didn't have a great hook, then we have another chance with that second slide, depending on if Instagram pushes it out to them again. So that's just something to keep in mind. With that, we want to make sure that we're thinking about the different kinds of people who consume our content. And the more interesting and different you can be, the better. I know this is hard because when we think about how most people create their graphics for social media, about 90% of the time, they're using some kind of template. Either a template that's already on Canva, or maybe you've purchased templates from someone like me, maybe a social media coach, or you have a social media manager who's using them for you. And the hard thing about that is, while they do make things easier, because they're easier, everybody else is doing it, right? So how can you make your carousel posts set apart? One way by doing this is by including visual aids, which makes sense because if someone's there to learn from you, what can you do to make learning easier? Well, one way is by including diagrams, including screenshots, testimonials. Take them on a journey with each side of the carousel post. Each one should have really great value, and that doesn't mean jamming as much text on there as possible. It just means that with each slide, they have a reason to keep advancing to the next one. And that maybe they have a reason to, after reading the carousel post, go and check your caption because carousel post was so good they want more. And from there, they decide they're going to DM you or follow you or go to the link in your bio because you want more. So you can start to see where we really want to make sure we're embedding value in every single interaction we have with them. When you can, try to include some screenshots and social proof. This is especially important if you're promoting a course or a membership, product, or a line of products. You want to have something to show them that it's not just you saying how cool something is. It'll be really good for you too, because seeing that social proof for yourself over and over again will also reaffirm to your brain that you do make great stuff, it is worth for you to sell, and that people want to buy it. Some things you can screenshot are messages you receive, reviews you even have on the TPT, Amazon, or Etsy websites. You can DM emails that you get. Of course, if it has someone's personal details, like even their first and last name or their photo, I do think it's best to just reach out to them and make sure it's okay that you include it. But any kind of images you can have to show that it's not just you saying that your stuff is good, and maybe even sources. If you are talking about something really scholarly too, by the way, like I use Science of Reading a lot as an example, you want to be able to show that it's not just your own opinions, that you actually have other sources and academic data that you're pulling from, especially with something like reading or anything technical. Okay, so let's talk what you do with the carousel post once you've created the graphics and maybe once you've written most of the caption. With all social media right now, a lot of posts actually are being indexed by Google, so we do want to make sure that we're creating captions and copy with keyword-rich content. We don't want to keyword stuff, but we do want to be cognizant of what is this content about? What are those core keywords that we could embed throughout this post so that when someone searches XYZ, they come across this post? That's one way it could get discovered. Hashtags are also a form of search engine optimization. Now, as of when I'm recording this, hashtags are kind of being phased out, but I'm still seeing results with them and so are my clients. So I'm going to keep recommending them until I see they're no longer getting used for you. Now, there's no magical number, right? There's no use these 5 hashtags, or if you use 10 hashtags, your post will be successful. That's not how it works. But what it does is it does tell Instagram what your post is about. And if you start using kind of similar hashtags regularly, or at least hashtags that are typically followed by the typical kind of person, Instagram will figure that out. That's why we have these complex algorithms. So it'll know where to send your best posts next. With that, I also recommend sharing your carousel post slides to your stories. A lot of people just take the actual feed post itself and share that to their stories and say something like new post. And while that's great, you actually could take each individual slide and share each of those individual slides to individual stories and give either additional information or give a way for them to interact with the content. You could include a slide on your stories and then have a poll on there asking what they think of it. You could have a DM sticker where you say, do you have any questions about this? Show me. You could have an engagement tap sticker and say, tap if you agree. As silly as it may sound, gamifying it does make it more fun for someone who's either following you or maybe discovering your stories for the first time. When you show that you're open and welcome to engagement and DMs, you're going to be more likely to get it, especially if you're posting consistently. Now, please hear me there. I have a post coming out either soon or it's already come out, an episode about sustainability versus consistency. So please hear me here. I am not saying that you have to post 5 stories a day, every single day, that you always have to be online, that you always have to be replying to DMs. But I will say that people have to be reminded of things or told something multiple times. I mean, you might even notice that in my content that I kind of say the same few things over and over again on this podcast, on my Instagram account, in my Facebook group. But that's for good reason. That repetition and reiteration helps us know that something is true, and it helps us actually fully believe it. So the more that you encourage people to DM you, to talk with you in your stories that you know what you're talking about, the more likely you're going to get that engagement and interaction with them. And that's in every post that you make, whether it's stories or otherwise. Carousel posts are really shareable. So don't just upload it to your own stories, which is great. And by the way, if you do think of somebody, this is really amazing, especially when you're in the beginning stages and you don't have a lot of followers yet. You probably know those first few followers really personally. So if you create a post with someone in mind and you think, hey, this person or this group of people would really benefit from this, don't be afraid to tag them in your stories. Mention them and said, hey, I tagged you because I thought you might be interested in this. Now, they may or may not get that little notification that says add a story and add it. But what it does is it sends to them directly in their DMs and shows them that you've made a story, that you tagged them, and it shows that you went above and beyond by actually creating customized content for them with them in mind. And that just, oh my gosh, that personal touch really shows that you're listening, that you care, and that puts you a mile above anyone else out there, especially when you have tens of thousands of followers. It's just basically impossible to be able to do that unless you have like large groups of people asking for something. If you are starting out or if you do have a small following, use that to your advantage. That's such a beautiful gift that you're not always going to have. And encourage people to share the carousel slides to their stories. You could even have that as a call to action. I have noticed that I usually put 2 calls to action in my posts. Usually the hook is to get them to click on what we call like the snippet or the preview, that first line. When you think about an Instagram post, there's like one line that you usually see, and then you have to tap the ellipses, those 3 little dots, so you can see the rest of the caption, right? So that first hook is what gets them to actually click on the caption. And then what I usually do is I put call to action right after that. Save this post for later. And depending on the kind of content, right? So if you are making recipes, a save call to action really makes sense because when you're scrolling Instagram, you may or may not be cooking and it may or may not be a relevant time for you. But saving it does show Instagram that it's a post that people want to respond to. So saving is really, really good. But they might want to share it too. And when you're creating these carousel posts, be thinking about that. How can you make content that's really shareable? And I'm not talking about virality. I'm saying that when you create something, it says something about the person. I think about this with like memes or even posts. Like I think I see this in the travel space a lot because that's where I'm at. I'll see a post that says something like travel is the best form of education. And it's like this inspirational travel picture and it has a quote over it. And it gets shared countless times, not because of the quote itself, although people are resonating with it. It's because the post says something about them. So by sharing that slide to their stories, they're saying, this not only resonates with me, this is part of my identity and I like it. So if you look at bored teachers, they are masterful with this. Just go scroll on them or go look at Teacher Misery Instagram account. 1, because it's hilarious, but 2, because they've done an excellent job in creating content not only by their followers because they listen and interact with their followers, but that their followers would want to share because they relate and resonate to it. Again, that's a journey and experimentation. You may not know exactly who your person is at first because you're figuring out what your voice is, who you are, what your message is. But as you start getting some traction, you'll start recognizing some commonalities between the people that really share your content. This is something that just is a etiquette thing, but I like to personally reach out to people when they do share something. I think I have like 600 or something followers as of right now, and that'll grow over time. But while I can, I definitely want to reach out to those people one-on-one. So when I see that something has shared one of my posts or slides to their stories, I double tap it. Sometimes I'll even add it to my story. That's good social proof for me to show other people that people are sharing my content. But it also just like kind of gives them a nod and say, hey, like, thank you so much. I hope people see that your content as well. And thanks for sharing this and reaching out. Another thing you can do is after you've shared it to your stories, you can click on this little circle with a heart on it in the lower right-hand side from your stories and add it to a highlight. This is especially helpful if you're trying to figure out what your content pillars are. You can look for commonalities and things that you regularly talk about. If you go on mine, you'll see that I have a highlight for each offer that I have, like my big courses and things. So people can kind of be taken through a whole funnel when they go and click that bubble. But you'll also see I have highlights for certain topics. So I have one about hiring and outsourcing because I know I might be the first person that a TPT seller or business owners work with. And that first hire, or even just your first few hires, can be really scary. So I want to answer their questions. I want to try to reassure any fears they have and all that. And also just have good content because I know that's something that people are wondering. And not just sellers, because I know that I kind of have multiple people in my audience. I've learned that over time. I have some people in my audience who either are social media managers or they want to be. So that's a little different, right? That's kind of a B2B mentoring option, but they might be listening to me or following me because they want to serve their clients better or they're interested in growing a social media manager business. That's not the bulk of my audience, but some people I know. And then I have TPT sellers, teacherpreneurs, teacher business owners who they sell on marketplaces like TPT, Etsy, and Amazon, and they're looking for slightly different things, right? They're most likely looking to DIY their social media management and content creation, at least for now. But they'd love to get to the point where in the future they could afford to hire it out because it's probably not something that's super fun for them. Then I have this other person who they actually do love social media and they're really interested in doing like affiliate marketing, brand deals, partnerships, sponsored posts. They actually want to get better at it and use it so they can really build their platform, whether they're selling on TPT or not. I call them more my teacher creators. Once you start creating more content, you're going to get a better sense of like what are the different segments in your market or just groups of people that you have following you, listening to you, looking at your stuff, and then you can start creating personalized content for them. So make those highlights once you know what those content pillars are. And then a couple of other things that people just don't really think about. You know, you can embed Instagram posts and not just carousel posts. You can do this with feed posts. You can do this with reels. You can embed them into blog posts, and that will actually help Google figure out what your blog post is about. Because titled with the headline and the meta description of the blog post and all of the other things you have, the more different forms of media that you can have inside of a blog post, that will help it start ranking for those keywords more quickly, especially if you've used those same keywords in the blog post that you did in your Instagram caption. It all works together, it really does. And depending on how you design the posts, if they are visually appealing, which ideally you want for them to be on the slides, you'll get there eventually, then the colors and branding and fonts and text should all match what's on the blog post. And so it really works together cohesively. And you can do that with feed posts or with carousel posts. And it's great because as you have people discovering your blog post, they're opting into your email list, so you're getting them there. They're clicking onto your product link, so you're getting sales there. And you're getting them on Instagram. So one, that grows your following and just builds up future social proof for other people. Two, that's good for brands to see if you do want to do affiliate marketing and brand partnerships down the road. And three, it's just more exposure to you. So now not only are they going to be on your email list or reading your blog post or whatever, but then they're going to get that constant interaction as a follower, ideally. Now, we don't always know that because sometimes we follow people and we never see their stuff again, but it's just an additional opportunity. And that's with email newsletters too. You can usually do some kind of a custom HTML option and then do the embed code into that box. And you can do an inline social media post into your newsletter. I do that a lot because sometimes it's asking a bit too much for someone to buy your product right now or to go do XYZ. But having value right there in the email that's in line with supporting what you're saying on a social media post, especially if you've already made it, it's like, why not get more use out of it? So that's just one other way to repurpose your content, embed it into blog posts and embed it into email newsletters. What are you thinking of this series so far? If you're not already following me on Instagram, I'd love to know. You can add me over at Brittany for Lenich and send me a DM and just kind of tell me which episode has been the most helpful. And if you haven't heard the others in this series yet, I did one 2 episodes ago about an Instagram strategy for small business. So definitely go listen to that one if you haven't already. And then the one right before this was how to get more reach with your reels. A lot of the advice will be similar when it just comes to getting more people, but you'll see that the tactics are different. We treat Reels differently than we do carousel posts because they're different types of mediums, even though they're on the same platform. And if you're looking for more help with this, I do have my Instagram for Introverts course coming out soon. If it's not out already, you can find all of that information in the show notes, or you can just DM me about it and ask. You're also more than welcome to come and chat with us in our community, the Social Media Magic Podcast Facebook group for TPT sellers and teacherpreneurs. You can go to facebook.com/groups/audience and authority for that, or you can just check the episode description and you'll have all the links you could ever want in there. Hope you love this episode. Talk to you soon.